Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be starting in about 1 minute. You ready? Okay. Okay. Our program will begin in about 30 seconds. Please take your seats. You ready to go? Okay. Everybody ready? All right, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2026 Maryland Republican primary debate for governor. My name is Chris Pabst, and I will be your host for tonight. To begin our evening, thank you. To begin our evening on a note of faith and patriotism, it is my honor to introduce Pastor Jerry Young, a respected local pastor from Brooklyn Bible Chapel, who will lead us in an opening invocation. Please rise if you are able.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we come before you today to explore important matters. We therefore ask for your guidance and wisdom, for you alone are the source of all knowledge and understanding. You, O God, ordained government as you gave mankind dominion over all that you created. You established rulers and governors to maintain peace and order for the well-being of all men. For wisdom and power are yours. You change the times and seasons. You raise up kings and remove them. You give wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. Help these candidates to understand that they are but instruments in the hands of Almighty God. We pray, Father God, that these candidates may be able to discern what is best and pure and blameless through these times of unrest and upheaval, bringing forth righteous works and deeds. Help them to do nothing out of selfish ambition and vain conceit, but in humility considering those they serve better than themselves. Cause them not to serve for their own interests, but for those who elected them. Fill them with the knowledge of your will for this country and this state through all wisdom and understanding, that they may live a life worthy of this calling and to please you, O God, in every way, that they might bear fruit in every good work. Make each of them to recognize that they are but human servants. Help us, O God, as citizens of this great country and state, to listen attentively with open hearts and minds. Help us to be active participants in this political process, to make our voices heard and to speak not for our own well-being, but for that which is best for this state and for this country. Cause us to reflect on the blessings which we have received from you, as our forefathers built this country on principles ordained by you, and help us to stay true to those principles and to uphold them. Grant your blessings upon this gathering tonight, and may your protective hand continue to shield this great republic of the United States. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Young. We will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance, led by retired Lieutenant Colonel. Please remain standing if you are able. We will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance, led by retired Lieutenant Colonel Bernie Flowers, a dedicated local veteran who has honorably served our country. Please place your right hand over your heart and join in. Thank you, Mr. Flowers, and thank you for your service. You may now please be seated. Maryland, our home state, faces serious challenges. A projected budget deficit approaching $3 billion next year, the warning signs showing it could grow significantly more. There's an affordability crisis for working families, persistent public safety concerns, domestic out-migration, and federal workforce disruptions that are hitting our state particularly hard. Tonight, these Republican candidates will make their case for leadership and their case for your vote. Tonight's format: each candidate has 90 seconds for an opening statement. The order was determined fairly by a draw backstage. Moderators will ask questions directed specifically to the candidates. The primary response will get 60 seconds. Upon lead from the moderator, others may give about 30 seconds for a response. Closing statements are 2 minutes each. They will be in reverse order. Our timekeeper will enforce all time limits strictly. Before we begin, we will welcome our candidates to the stage. Please join me in a warm round for our candidates. I am also joined tonight by our expert moderator panel, Kim Klasick, Euripsy Morgan, I didn't forget about you, and Tori Snow. With that, we will begin with our opening statements in the order that they were drawn backstage. Each candidate will have 90 seconds. We begin with the candidate in seat 1, John Myrick.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Mr. Papst, I appreciate that. Moderators, thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, I am John Myrick, and with your assistance, I will be the next governor of the state of Maryland. Unlike our current governor, I am a Marylander. I grew up here. I've served as a Harford County Deputy Sheriff, protecting you at night in your homes. I've served in the U.S. Air Force Reserve for 23 years, retired after flying for 10 of that, and again, unlike our current governor, I can actually account for my combat decorations. My running mate, Dr. Brenda Cham, and I have very real solutions to solve the very real problems that each and every day Marylanders face. Our energy plan will cut energy costs by 50% within the 4 years. We will rebuild the schools so that our students can actually read the diplomas that they get when they graduate. More importantly, we will restore public confidence in our fiscal policies. We will stop spending your money in Annapolis as if it were monopoly money or just numbers on the ledger. That's hard-earned tax dollars coming out of your pocket. And we will improve public safety. Thank you.
Is this
Our
on?
next candidate, Shannon Wright.
Is this on? Can you all hear me? Okay, I'm gonna stand up, because I'm short. So forgive me for sweating. It is hot, and I'm at that stage where it's always summer, so forgive me. I'm running for governor because I want Maryland to be a place where I can feel comfortable with my children and my grandchildren. I'm running for governor because I know that the way our current governor cut the money he cut from folks with developmental disabilities didn't have to happen. I know that there's enough waste, fraud, and mismanagement in that budget to be able to use the money appropriately so that we could truly be a state that leaves no one behind. You're going to hear a lot of things tonight, and I'm not one for a lot of words, but I will tell you this. What you get with myself and my running mate, Reba Hawkins, is a team that is not just about talk, but actual action. This year, this legislative season, forgive me, folks, I had the honor and the privilege of writing two bills, HB 1626 and HB 1632. Now, the reason I did that is twofold. One, I want to know how it works when I become governor. And two, I want to encourage each and every one of you to be a part of the change we all want to see. And you all have issues and things that you want to see changed. I want you to do the same. Thank you.
Our next candidate, Douglas Larcomb.
Good evening, residents of Maryland. Pleased to meet you. A little bit about me is I'm a constitutionalist. So if it's in the Constitution, supported by the Constitution, I'm with it. In the Declaration of Rights in the Constitution of Maryland, Article 2, states clearly that federal law is the supreme law of the state of Maryland. And it also says that the judges have got to adhere to that. Amen. So, furthermore, my policies and so on, they lean towards getting people registered who are undocumented immigrants in this state. So I'm going to tell you right now, the math doesn't work by trying to deport 11 million people. So that's not going to happen. I'm sorry if the Republican base doesn't like that, but I'm also reaching across the aisle here to the Democrat Party and the Independents. So here's the issue. Deporting 7,000 people a week only equals 375,000 people a year. And that is the same rate that Barack Obama had. And Barack Obama was known as the deporter-in-chief. So I've got a lot to say as we go along here, and we'll try to figure out what's what and how we can manage to govern together and unite.
Our next candidate, L.D. Birkendine.
Hello. Hi. I'm glad everybody showed up tonight. Thank you for being here. And with your support, I could be the next governor. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. So my name is Lawrence Darlington Birkendine. I'm a fifth-generation Maryland man. My family came to this country in like 1670 up in Darlington, Maryland. Okay. So I love Maryland. My family has loved Maryland. They've stayed here throughout the years. I have a pretty big family, and we believe in Maryland. And I want to fight for Maryland. I want to fight for everybody in the state. I'm a hard worker. I've been a contractor. We get things done. And so we need to take care of everybody sitting here today and all the Maryland residents that are real Marylanders. That's who I want to fight for, okay? Education is a big deal for me. I have a plan that I want to put the kids in training so that they could have work days, work like 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, so they can have shop classes, so they can rotate. There's like 5,200 vendors that work for the state of Maryland. And we need to rotate these kids out so that they can learn jobs. We want to, and also banks have a program where they'll come out and teach kids how to reconcile checkbooks. It's a literacy program that is free. We don't use it. The schools don't use it. Across the state, it's a literacy program that we should use. They can open up checking accounts and learn how to reconcile accounts. We need to do that. But if the kids are going to working part-time as a work-study program, they'll put money in their pockets, keeps them off the street, they'll learn trades, they can rotate, we'll bring home ec back to school, we'll bring all the trades back to school, and that's a big deal with me, education. Law enforcement, we've got to support the police officers through the state. We've got to have their backs. We got to have a zero policy on violent crime.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. And our fifth candidate, Michael Oakes.
Good evening, everybody. Unfortunately, I got chose last, so I agree with everything that everybody said. But aside from that, I want to give you a little personal information because Maryland needs a leader, not somebody that's going to be led like we have now. I've been in business for myself for 50 years. I've been married to the same woman for 50 years. I know she has questions about that, but aside from that, I've done business in 7 states and 3 European countries. I've been successful, and I had had enough of the regulations and the taxes and the fees that are imposed upon small business people. If you want business in Maryland, that's got to change. If you want big business in Maryland, it still has to change. So let's get a leader in there and move on. Thank you.
And thank all of you for coming. This is a great crowd. Thank you so much, guys, for coming. It's wonderful. Thank you to our candidates as well. And now, moderators, go.
Good evening. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight, and so we will ask the questions. Out of respect for the candidates, we'd request that the audience refrain from applause, remarks, so that the candidates can get through their remarks and we can get as much information out of this evening. So tonight we begin with the fundamental question that every Republican voter in Maryland must ask. Can this candidate actually win in November? Maryland has a low Republican registration, voters who consistently choose party over candidate, and a general election that will require significant unaffiliated and crossover Democrat support. So let's talk about your plans. We'll start with you, Mr. Myrick. Winning is all that matters. Given Maryland's low Republican registration, voter tendency to choose party over candidate, recent statewide results, and the need for unaffiliated and crossover Democrat votes, what 2 specific things do you plan to do to win a statewide race against the Democrat in November?
Thank you for the question. First off, we intend to do what we've been doing for the past 14 months. My running mate and I have been canvassing across the state. We have done over 500 events in every jurisdiction in Maryland, trying to reach Marylanders where they are while working full-time jobs, because this is important. Democrats are just as angry at this governor as we are as Republicans. He's reaching into their pockets just as deeply as he is yours. Their kids go to the same failed schools as yours do, and they walk down the same unsafe streets that you do, and they're tired of it too. We do events in primarily Democrat areas all the time, and the first thing we hear from those folks is, when are you going to get rid of Westmore? These are in areas where they have a hard time spelling Republican. They're tired of it. So we are letting our message be known in these areas, because every day that this governor is in office is a gift politically for any opponent. He has not made a right choice in the past 3.5 years. There's no anticipation that he'll ever make a right choice. And he can't find the truth with both hands in a flashlight. Marylanders know that, Democrats know that, and they're tired of it. So we're going to drive our message home of restoring accountability to Maryland. Thank you.
As a reminder, because time is very short, please withhold applause after each question. We'll ask the same question for Ms. Wright. Again, the emphasis, what 2 things will you do to win over unaffiliated and independent voters?
So, what we are doing and will continue to do is be where they are. Talk about the issues that make sense. We have more that unites us than divides us. So 1, we're going to talk about education and youth issues and helping strengthen families. And 2, helping folks keep more of their hard-earned money in their pockets. Now, one thing I will tell you is most of you in this room will not see me very often. Because if you see me, I'm preaching to the choir. My job is to grow the choir. You can't always win over votes, but you can register new voters. And you can reach folks that share the same kitchen table issues. And that has been our focus and will continue to be.
Mr. Larcomb.
Well, Marylanders, do you have any money left? How's your electric bill look? I will tell you that my family is diverse and eclectic. I do not see color. And hopefully, the great Martin Luther King's values apply here, where we do not judge a person by the color of their skin, rather the content of their character. So what we need to do here is cut some taxes and get serious about it. And we have some addicts here, and I'm not going to really be too hard on our legislators, but there's one in particular, and he's right down the road here, the State House, and he will take every penny he can get from you. So we are going to look at streamlining the government here, number 1, and cut costs and save us some taxpayer money, because this is Maryland's future, and we are almost at insolvency. So much so that the bond rating was just cut by Moody's and supported by Fitch and Standards & Poor's. The second thing I'm going to do is reduce your electric bills by half, and I'm going to do that within 6 months of taking office. And I've got a comprehensive plan to get that resolved. And it's pretty straightforward, and it's pretty firm. So that is what I will do to beat Westmore, and he knows I'm coming.
Mr. Birkendine, 2 items that you would do to win over unaffiliated and independents.
Well, first of all, I've already reached out to all the union affiliates that I know. And the other day, I had a gentleman call me up, and he changed his card out from Democrat to Republican. There's a thing going through all the unions right now. I've reached out to every one of them, all the trades, the longshoremen, and we're converting these guys from Democrats to Republicans. And they're all committed, and we're going to be having all kind of different meetings. I'm going to all the union meetings. There's a lot of guys here that is becoming Republicans. The unions were mostly Democrat, but now these guys are converting over Republican. So I got the commitment from all the business agents. I have a young fellow that I'm working with in Baltimore City. He's got 185,000 followers on social media. We posted a few videos. He's working with me in Baltimore City and Prince George's County and Montgomery County. He said we're going to turn the tide. We're going to get these guys, all the people that are Democrats, get them to turn to Republicans. We only have a few weeks to do it, so we're going to work real hard on that, and I got a commitment from a lot of people telling me they're going to become Republicans. So that's what I'm going to do to get the vote, and I'm going to work real hard on that, and I work harder than anybody else. As a businessman for over 40 years, you have to do that, and you have to keep your money close to you, and we got to take care of this budget, and we got to take care of this money, so that's what I'm going to do. So getting the people to understand that we got to keep the money close to our vest.
Mr. Oakes, 2 things that you would do to win unaffiliated and independents.
We have 202,478 registered Democrats in Maryland, give or take a few. We have 106,000 registered Republicans. We have 102,000 independents and others. If you combine the independents and the Republicans, and everybody in the Democrat line votes party line, we still lose. So what my lieutenant governor and I have been doing is we're going out and we're talking to people. We even have a program that we call RID, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. And we're pushing this on people to tell them, you're going to end up with the same thing over and over unless you change your opinion of what the Republican Party is and what they can do for you. So let's vote Republican, and we'll make this work. It has to. That's the only way we're going to change, is if voters change it. Thanks.
Okay, for this next section, you're each going to get a separate question, but most of the questions will have to do with the budget, taxes, and economy. Maryland faces a projected $1.4 to $1.5 billion budget deficit, with warnings that it could reach up to $4 billion by fiscal year 2030. The 2025 legislative session added $1.8 billion in new taxes and fees, with unfunded mandates shifting costs to local governments. Marylanders are feeling it, so let's talk about some solutions. This question is for John Merrick. Maryland faces a budget deficit that could reach $4 billion by the end of the decade. What are your specific plans for balancing the state budget that include both managing expenses and maximizing income?
Well, first off, the Maryland budget has to be balanced by the state constitution. So if the governor keeps telling you that he's balancing the budget, because he has to, and he's doing it on the backs of Marylanders. We will bring in an independent audit agency on the first day in office from outside of Maryland to take a look at each and every one of the 22 departments and 54 independent agencies that make up the state of Maryland's government. Where we find waste, we will cut it. Where we find fraud, we will prosecute it, because no one is going to steal your money on my watch. Now, we will also implement an Office of the Inspector General, something that Maryland doesn't have. Maryland doesn't have an income problem. Maryland has a spending problem. This is a very rich state. Our neighbors to the north, their budget for a population twice Maryland's last year was $50.1 billion. Ours was $67.3. So they provide all the same services to twice as many people on 5 times the road network as we do, for $17 billion less. And they're run by a Democrat governor too. So this is not a partisan politic issue. It's a competence and spending issue. We will rein in spending. We will lower your taxes. We will bring economic opportunities back to Maryland, and we will make this state prosperous once again. Thank you.
My question is for Shannon Wright. Democrats passed $1.8 billion in new taxes and fees in the 2025 budget cycle, including a new IT services tax and higher income tax brackets for top earners. Republicans argued this would drive businesses out of Maryland. As governor, how specifically would you attract new businesses and incentivize existing businesses to stay in Maryland? Ms. Wright.
Well, the first thing is I would go through the different taxes and fees and see which ones are making sense. Now, the IT tax that you mentioned was anticipated to bring in amount of money that it is nowhere near. So I would not be married to these different taxes and fees. If they don't work, if they're too burdensome, then they need to go. That would be one thing that we would look at. 2, in terms of bringing in businesses and jobs and growing the economy here in Maryland, one of the first things that we have to do is fix the school system. We have to bring back trades. We have to bring back technology. We have to make sure that as we are out and about in the world, as our current governor is, bringing companies here to Maryland, that we are creating a job force ready to take those jobs. To bring in companies that bring in jobs that Marylanders still can't get defeats the purpose.
Mr. Larcomb, according to the Maryland Comptroller's April 2024 report, between 2021 and 2024, approximately 100,000 residents and businesses left Maryland for another U.S. state. What concrete action item will you take in your first year to slow that outflow and eventually turn it around?
Mr. Snow, I will say this, that is not a surprising figure. Maryland ranks about 42nd in the United States with regard to economic growth and is one of the most expensive states to run a business. in the nation. The job growth for the state of Maryland is 0.6% and ranks between 49th and 50th. The way we draw business into the state is with tax abatements. You offer new corporations coming to the state, small business as well, a 10-year tax abatement, which means they are not going to pay a corporate tax for 10 years. Furthermore, we're going to promise that at the end of that 10 years, that the corporate tax rate is going to be at a competitive 2.5% corporate tax rate. Now, the interesting thing about bringing corporations into the state is they hire people. And so there goes the problem with the job growth being at 0.6%. So, reduced corporate tax after a 10-year tax abatement is how I would draw business back to the state of Maryland. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Mr. Birkentine, Governor Moore has added thousands of employees to the state payroll. Would you reduce the size of state government, and if so, in what specific areas and how?
Well, first I would start with Department of Education. I don't believe that we had to bring in 2,000, I believe the number was 2,000 more employees into the state. I think these people shouldn't have been hired because they got laid off from the federal government. It doesn't help our economy. It's not going to help our state grow. It's just going to create more problem for the taxpayers. We're just paying fees, paying these wages, and we're not getting nothing out of it. If people are going to work here, people are going to come to the state, they got to be productive workers. We need to build our base, our tax base up. We need to bring in manufacturing. We got to have a good, solid foundation. The only way we're going to do that is by bringing companies back to the state and bring back manufacturing. So manufacturing status is a big deal. If you have manufacturing status, you pay less tax automatically. So we want to give companies manufacturing status and give them the opportunity to work in this state. We need to get, when I was growing up, we had people building cars, we had people doing ships, we had a steel plant, all that's closed down. We got to bring these manufacturing companies back here, and we got to have a good solid base and have good living wages so we can pay our wages, pay our income taxes, but we need to keep that low so we keep the people in the state of Maryland. So that's what we have to work on, and that's what I'll do as governor if you elect me.
Maryland has recently passed legislation limiting local law enforcement cooperation with ICE, while Baltimore and other cities continue to face crime challenges. The Comptroller's 2024 report notes approximately 75,000 new residents from outside the United States between 2021 and 2024. My question is for you, Mr. Oakes. Republican sheriffs have warned that cutting ICE cooperation could result in aggressive federal immigration sweeps statewide. How would you manage Maryland's relationship with federal immigration authorities?
I've talked to a couple of sheriff's associations just to get a feel for what they want, and the majority of them have said, we're not going to pay attention to what the governor wants. We're going to enforce the law, whatever it takes, we're going to do our job. So as governor, do your job. I don't care what part you're in, do your job. That's what you're hired for. Take care of the business, and the rest of it will take care of itself. We can no longer support takers. We want makers to come in. So let's get the takers and escort them out. Thank you.
Mr. Myrick, Baltimore City and other urban areas have faced persistent violent crime challenges. What would your approach to public safety and criminal justice look like, and how is it fundamentally different from what Democrats have done?
As a former law enforcement officer here in Maryland, law enforcement is near and dear to my heart, clearly. I've spoken with sheriffs and chiefs of police from across the state. I hold the endorsements of two of the most outspoken sheriffs in the state of Maryland right now. Every state law enforcement officer I've spoken to tells me several things. One is funding is making it almost impossible for them to recruit and retain highly qualified officers. Second is they need to know that their officers are protected. Maryland repealed the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights under Governor Hogan over his objection and over his veto. Maryland was the first state in the union to have that. 19 other states followed suit. Maryland's the only state to repeal it. So as a result, officers can go over to Virginia or to Pennsylvania and be protected and get paid more. So the money is there. Lottery money in this state was supposed to go to schools and public safety. It hasn't. Tax revenues from casino gambling were supposed to go to the same places. They're all going to the general fund. That is the direct fault of the governor because the governor makes the budget. When elected, I will make a budget that honors what you want and where you said that money's supposed to go. So those revenues, $2.5 billion last year, will go to public safety and public schools.
This next question is for Shannon Wright. Again, citing the Maryland Comptroller's April 2024 State of the Economy report on international immigration bailed out Maryland, where 75,000 residents moved to Maryland from outside the United States. What concrete steps would you use in your first year to manage the balance of immigration and entice more Marylanders to stay in the state?
So this, along with several other issues in my administration, are going to be done very simply the way that you're raised at home. When you were a child, if you lived in an urban area like I did, you didn't leave the door open. You locked the door. You also didn't particularly appreciate or allow folks to just decide to help themselves and just come on and run through. So I want us to get back to some basic things. I think that we need to have all the partnerships that we can with state and federal partners, number one, so that immigration is not an issue, just the illegal part, and that we fix that. In Baltimore now, the mayor has said that he's going to allow and require the city's attorneys to help folks that are here illegally. I think that we would be better served to be able to enforce the laws that are here and be able to, if necessary, give folks an opportunity, a pathway to citizenship. My family's here, second generation. We're not against immigration, we're against the illegal part. This country was built on immigration. It's not what you're doing, it's how we've been allowed to let it happen. So we get back to the basics, and I think that's the end of my time.
Maryland State Public School proficiency scores for math and English and language arts have shown modest improvements after mandating billions of dollars on the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. Mr. Larcomb, my question is for you. Maryland's Blueprint for Maryland's Future is a massive multi-billion-dollar education reform that Republicans have called unaffordable. Would you slow it, reform it, or repeal it? And what is your alternative vision for improving Maryland schools?
Well, thank you, Ms. Klasik. And the last name is Larcomb.
Apologies.
So we're talking about Blueprint here. The Blueprint program, which is supposed to give Marylanders, their children, a world-class education. And I am telling you that all the taxpayers in this room and in this state are getting the world-class education. Blueprint is broke. If you listen to the Republican chair, Paul Cordman, he will tell you that they are going to be wanting more money for this program. Now, for what you had just stated, Ms. Klasik, I have to wonder, why does Baltimore only have a 72% high school graduation rate? That's ridiculous. So the first thing I would do, besides ending the Blueprint program, because there's a lot of misappropriation here. And in fact, I've gotten a hold of the Accountability and Implementation Board, who distributes that $9.35 billion. And I want to know who the consultants are and who the contractors are and what kind of money they're getting paid. And so they got back to me today and they said they'd have the intel to me in 10 days. So what I would do is I would go to the high schools and call for collective meeting with the student body and talk to the young freshmen and perhaps even catch these children in different communities. Am I out of
Thank you,
time?
Mr. Larcomb. Mr. Birkendine, this question is for you. Parents across Maryland have raised concerns across curriculum content, school choice, and transparency in education. The Supreme Court recently ruled in favor of the parents in Montgomery County. What specific education policies would you champion as governor to increase transparency and parental involvement?
Okay, well, I would have an audit of the Department of Education, and we would find out exactly where this money's gone and where it's disappeared to. And $38 billion for education, the numbers don't add up. Let's face it, we have how many taxpayers in the state of Maryland that's paying taxes right now? To come up with another $38 billion, it's just not going to happen. The school choice is what I believe in. I believe parents, right now I think it's $21,600 a year. That is what allotted to every child. So the parents should have the choice of where these kids go. And I also think that we should have a checkoff system, like a rate a teacher. And I think kids should be able to decide, the parents should be able to decide where these kids go to school. And we should have programs that make sure that these kids graduate, like the trade schools, work studies, and those type of jobs, so that the kids get a real opportunity to graduate. And we need to make sure that all these children across the state, it doesn't matter where they're at, they have a real opportunity. And if their parents feel like they're in a violent area, and the parents want to be able to move them, I think they should be able to move them. They should have the choice. The parents know the children better than anybody else. That's it.
All right, this last education question is for Mr. Oakes. Mr. Oakes, who is primarily responsible for the education of our children, the parents or the state? Please elaborate on the proper role of each.
The proper role of each. Parents come first. Teachers come second. My wife has been a teacher for 35 years, and parental participation is horrible. You need more participation by parents, and I realize the kids are smarter than the parents nowadays, but they still have to participate. There's so much stuff that goes on in the state that is family-oriented or should be family-oriented, that go back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. Don't concentrate on the new math for a third grader that goes home and says, "Mom, can you help me with this?" Mom's not going to help her. She doesn't know how to. So get the parents participating, get them taking care of their kids, teaching them ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and I'm sure that you'll see a real improvement later on.
Maryland is one of the states most heavily dependent on federal employment. Federal workforce reductions under DOGE have hit Maryland harder than almost any other state. My question is for you, John Myrick. Tens of thousands of Marylanders work for the federal government or federal contractors. With DOGE-driven workforce reductions hitting our state hard, what is your plan to help affected workers and to diversify Maryland's economy away from federal dependency?
Thank you for the question. As a federal contractor, this is near and dear to my heart. I'm also a retired federal employee, so this is important. But the bottom line here is you have to have a governor who's willing to work with our federal partners. The federal government is Maryland's largest employer. And in the past year, we've lost over 35,000 jobs in Maryland, federal jobs specifically, because we have a governor who has publicly said that he will not work with the federal government. That's insanity. As the governor, your job is to work with your largest employer, and it doesn't matter who's sitting in the White House. You have to be willing to work with our federal partners. As for diversification, Maryland has known for decades that we are too heavily dependent on federal employment. And governors, both Democrat and Republican, have done absolutely nothing about it. We will fix that by lowering the corporate tax rate from the 8.5% down to 5%. We will bring jobs here, good paying jobs, to diversify Maryland's economic opportunities. That way, we will not be as dependent on the federal government. We will also work with our federal partners to stop the hemorrhage of federal jobs here in Maryland. You have to be willing to talk to these people. And if you are not, you get what we've got. And that is basically an open wound that just keeps pouring federal jobs out. We can't afford that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, this question is for you. Governor Moore has positioned Maryland in opposition to the Trump administration on multiple fronts. As governor, how would you handle Maryland's relationship with Washington, D.C.? On which issues would you cooperate, and on which would you push back?
Well, that's a good question. So, in my administration as governor, leadership looks like grown folks sitting at the table, not a child picking a fight. To somehow, Mr. Moore, bless his soul, missed a chapter in the book that says, if you're going to have a top-heavy state and need federal money, don't go poking the bear and then putting your hand out begging for him to fill it. So, we are going to be the grown folks in the room and understand that leadership is give and take. Now, because the authority that I swear my oath to is up there, not down here, I'm going to make sure that I do all things in decency and order. I am going to hold to those principles and ethics, and unlike the current mayor of Baltimore who said, if it's not illegal, it's okay, no. We're going to have standards. We're going to have ethics. We're going to make sure that we are a place, a state, that we can be the example for the other states, and we are going to work with our federal partners. If Washington was farther away than it is, I could see being special like our governor is. But you want to poke the bear that's right down the street. And then you want to be over budget on your Department of Works, on your bridge, on your everything, and ask for them to fill the gap. That don't work. That don't work.
Thank you. Because everyone's been very respectful, very good with time, I'm going to open up the floor for 30-second responses if anyone else would like to take a stab at this question. How would you cooperate with, or what would you not cooperate with the federal government? 30 seconds.
Day one, I would actually call the president and have a meeting with him and say the state of Maryland does not and is not going to have succession here. To me, it seems clear to me that there's a few states that think they don't want to be part of the federal government. California is one of them. Our current governor has a lot of ties to California. He's got a lot of money coming in from California for his campaign, and we have to work with the federal government. Come on, we pay federal taxes, so we need to get our tax money back. So we need that working for us. So why shut it down?
Thank you, Mr. Berkendine. One more response. Mr. Myrick.
As governor, your job is to work with federal authorities, and we will. Under my administration, we will work with the federal government. And as governor, your job is not to evaluate personalities in the White House, it's to evaluate policies. And where policies make sense for Maryland, we will fully support them 100%. Where policies coming out of Washington do not make sense for Maryland, we will oppose them respectfully first, quietly, and vocally if we must. But it all starts with using common sense and using civility.
And moving on to redistricting and democracy. Governor Moore signed a new congressional redistricting map that Republicans and many independent voters and observers view as specifically designed to eliminate the only remaining Republican U.S. House seat in Maryland, held by Congressman Andy Harris. This raises serious questions about the integrity of our elections. This question is for you, Mr. Larcomb. Governor Moore signed a new congressional map that Republicans argue is designed to eliminate Andy Harris's seat, the only remaining Republican U.S. House seat in Maryland. Do you believe this was constitutional? And as governor, what would you do to ensure fair redistricting in the future?
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. I believe that Wes Moore knows that he is in trouble in this election, and he will do anything to get another term in the State House. The problem with that is is that we can't afford it. Now, the redistricting is favorable and it is unconstitutional because we are supposed to have fair elections. And when you redistrict and redraw maps for the benefit of your party, then you are in effect cheating. And we're not going to tolerate that as a people. So the thing to do here is really, honestly, is to challenge Westmore and the state of Maryland in court to let the federal government weigh in on whether or not the redistricting was fair in this particular case. And I assure you that it is not. And anybody that starts to gerrymander during a midterm election, that pretty much explains. And I'm going to point out to you, PG County, Montgomery County, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, if you got to cheat to win, that's no way to win. And I'm looking for your support here in the upcoming election, and if you want to save money and make life easy and affordable, that is the move to make.
Thank you, Mr. Larcomb. We've heard a lot about Governor Westmore, but as we know, this is a Republican primary, so that means you guys have to convince us about why you should win to go on to challenge Governor Westmore. So, Mr. Oakes, is there, if you would like to respond to this question, go ahead. I'll repeat the question. Governor Moore signed a new congressional map that Republicans argue is designed to eliminate Andy Harris's seat, the only remaining Republican U.S. House seat in Maryland. Do you believe this was constitutional? And as governor, what would you do to ensure fair redistricting in the future?
That's a good question. I would redistrict the entire state, and I know you have to deal with population controls and this, that, and the other, but I have a friend that emigrated here from Iran, and he got here when Martin O'Malley redistricted and got rid of the Frederick County representative, who was a big help of getting him in, getting his citizenship. I'd like to go back to redistricting where it's fair and balanced, not all Democrat, all Republican. If it means changing the state constitution, then do that, but quit the cheating.
And one more question on this point. Mr. Myrick, do you believe that Mr. Oakes' approach to redistricting the entire state is the correct approach?
Well, I think to redistrict the state, first off, midterm redistricting is ridiculous. It's supposed to be done after every census, which means every 10 years. So once that comes about in 2030, we need to form a commission made up of bipartisan people, Democrats and Republicans, because you cannot gerrymander your way out of this problem. Gerrymandering is wrong, and I don't care which side does it. It's wrong. You cannot disenfranchise over 1 million Republican voices in Maryland. So a bipartisan commission to fairly redraw the map so that it will bear scrutiny by both the public and the courts is the only way to do this.
Mr. Birkendine, as a follow-up to that question, do you also believe that mid-cycle redistricting is wrong, or do you think that there are exceptions when it may be appropriate?
There's no exceptions to this. It's got to stop. We just have to stop it, and we have to do what we can. We know it's going to pass because it is Democrat. Our legislators it's all Democrats, so they're going to pass this. So what's going to happen is we're going to have to repeal it. As governor, I would repeal that and do what we can to reverse that. And it's going to take work, but we have to put a lot of pressure on the House and the other committees to make sure that they don't allow this to happen. And we've got to put political pressure on it. The Republicans are going to have to work hard to put pressure on these people. It's going to happen, but we're going to have to get it repealed. And if I was governor and they tried to pass it, I would veto that.
And finally, thank you. And finally, Ms. Wright, we've had two candidates who have agreed that mid-cycle redistricting is wrong. What is your opinion about mid-cycle redistricting? Is there ever a time when it is appropriate? And do you feel that the maps as they are right now, are they currently fair?
So, I don't know the bio of my opponents up here, But I can tell you this, as a former vice chair of the state party, former chair of the Maryland Black Republican Council, and former chair of the Baltimore City Republican Central Committee, I can tell you that when it comes to redistricting and being able to proportion the districts and how the voters and candidates and all of that, it's done every 10 years for a reason. It's done every 10 years for a reason. So to do anything in between time is gerrymandering. Now, on election night, when Prop 50 passed in California, Gavin Newsom called out Wes Moore, basically saying, okay, I did it, what you doing? What you got on this? Because they both have DC aspirations. Fair maps, 10 years, as they're supposed to be.
Affordability is a crisis for Maryland families. The median age of a first-time home buyer in Maryland rose from 30 in the year 2000 to 40 in 2025, a full decade later in life. Energy costs, housing costs, and the overall cost of living are forcing families out of the state. What would you do? Mr. Birkendine, I believe we're on you now. Many Marylanders, young and old, are concerned about affordability. For example, the median age of the first-time home buyer increased from 30 in 2000 to 40 in 2025. What specific policies will you implement to improve affordability and trend back toward the 2000 figures?
I would come up with a grant program for first-time buyers and anybody who wants to buy a house between $100,000 and $200,000. The problem is a lot of people work every day, they pay rent, they pay all these bills, and they just can't come up with the money for a down payment and settlement fees. If you could give kids grants to go to school and you could give grants to these nonprofit organizations, why not give grants to the people that rent, low-income people and across the state, so they could get together and actually have a down payment and settlement fees. And you'll put a lot of people that are renting, buying houses, and it'll work. Now, the grant program, people say, well, you can't do a grant program, but there's a way to work that in. As governor, I would put together a program that would be able to allow these people to get these grants. And they would have the settlement fees and their down payment, and of course these loans would also, we'd have to work with banks to make this happen, and I'm sure they want to get this done. Also, grocery bills. I believe in working with the farmers in the state of Maryland. I have a project that I'm putting together for co-ops, farmers markets across the state. If we have the farmers dealing directly with the farmers markets, bringing in groceries and produce, they could sell directly to the consumer, and believe it or not, you would save 22 to 36% on your grocery bills across the state. In Baltimore and across the other counties, on Eastern Shore there's a lot of farmers markets. We need to put together a program, a co-op program, to allow these farmers markets and put them all over the state. And if you do that, you'll bring grocery bills down, it'll make jobs, it brings us all together, because farmers markets bring communities together.
I want to express an incredible amount of appreciation to all the candidates. You have been respectful of the time, you've been respectful of one another. As we move into this next phase, we do want to give you some opportunities to create some distinctions. All of you are competing with one another and you're bringing different ideas, and I do believe that all of you are capable of having a discussion, creating those distinctions without getting personal. So we are going to revisit some of our previous questions. We will stick to the 30-second responses if we can. I believe it was Mr. Larcomb that got the question about the exodus from Maryland, and so I will give Mr. Myrick an opportunity. I'll read the question again. According to the Maryland Comptroller's April 2024 report, between 2021 and 2024, approximately 100,000 residents and businesses left Maryland for other U.S. states. What concrete steps will you take in your first year steps to slow that outflow and eventually turn it around? And I'd like you to create a distinction. What is something that you plan to do that you don't believe anyone else is offering at this point?
Well, again, most people are leaving because of economic opportunities and high cost of living. Our energy plan will bring the cost of energy down by 50% during the first 4 years. That will help. We'll also implement plans, and we've talked to both Republican and Democratic legislators down in Annapolis on this. We will introduce legislation that will make all retirement income in the state of Maryland, Maryland state income tax exempt. That will help our seniors. We will also implement a plan to have Maryland state property taxes exempted for your primary residence for any homeowner over the age of 65, because you should never have to make the difference between paying property taxes or paying for food.
Thank you. Does anyone feel they have a distinction from what Mr. Myrick offered? Yes. Mr. Birkendine.
Okay, a lot of people are fleeing the state. They're senior citizens. Down in South Carolina, they offer tax refunds on their property tax. They give them money back on their health insurance. They pay it during the year, and then at the end of the year, they get it back. We don't do that here in Maryland, so senior citizens are leaving the state pretty quick. We need to come up with a plan like that to keep the senior citizens here. We also have to do an energy thing with the power plants. We have to get the power plants back up and running. We have Brandon Shore's power plant that is running at 20% of the capacity that it was doing 20 years ago. Energy bills, people in Baltimore County, Baltimore City are paying probably $300, $400, maybe I was told $800. Just last month, somebody paid for an energy bill. We got to get that factories going, the power plants going.
We've had several ideas mentioned. How about priorities? What does anyone feel is the top priority? What is the most important thing that needs to be done? 30 seconds for anyone that'd like to respond.
What was the question?
About bringing people back to Maryland. Yes, Mr. Larcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. Whether or not we can bring the same people back to Maryland is an interesting question, right? Because the affordability of the state, being it's the fourth highest personal income tax state in the nation, is a good question, but I don't know that it's doable. And I think through my earlier assessment that I brought forth with regard to business, bringing business back, and the only other way to do that if you want the same 100,000 people back is to create jobs. So I think it's sufficient with regard to a tax abatement for 10 years with a reduced corporate tax to bring businesses back here and make this state business friendly. Because as it stands right now with the energy costs and so on, it's not affordable.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Larcomb. One more response. Yes,
If I
Ms.
may?
Wright.
There are several things that need to happen to be able to bring businesses back to Maryland. Number one, first, as I said, fix the public education system. When people are looking, when families, when grown folk, I'm speaking to all the grown folk in the room, and I think all of you here, except for you, you look like you're a teenager still. But I think everybody here is grown. When you decide where you're going to move for a job opportunity, you look at two things: how safe it is and how good the schools are. So if we're not looking at solutions that encompass that, you're missing the mark. And what I would do as far as education is do something that I had learned about through my studies at the Heritage Foundation. Introduce academic savings accounts. Bring competition into the public schools and let the money follow the students.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Thank you. Now, we know that affordability is obviously one of the biggest issues facing the state of Maryland, or facing the state of Maryland and our residents. So I'm going to go back to the last question that we asked, and I'm going to ask for a response from one of you. Many Marylanders, young and old, are concerned about affordability. For example, the median age of the first-time home buyer increased from 30 in the year 2000 to 40 years old in 2025. What specific policies would you implement to improve affordability and trend back toward the 2000 figures? So I'm going to ask this question to Mr. Birkendine.
Well, I started with this before. The reason why these people aren't buying is they cannot come up with the money for the down payment or the settlement. So we have to work out a situation through grants that we could get these people in the houses so they could buy houses. And if rent, for instance, if you buy a house that's a $200,000 house, the payment's going to be around $2,000 a month for a 3-bedroom house. Renters are paying probably $2,000, $2,400 a month. So why don't these people own a house? Why can't we help them get into these houses? If we can help kids go to college, especially foreigners, well, since we're a sanctuary state, we seem to be giving a lot of foreigners money to go to school. And so why can't we come up with grants for our kids to go to school? Go to get these houses. And I'm saying kids because I bought my first house when I was 18. Okay, and people said you couldn't buy it, but we were in war, and they allowed me to buy a house at 18. So why can't other kids buy houses at 18? We need to make it available for them. If they can make a living, they should be able to buy a house and make it affordable for them. And through grants You don't pay it back over 5 years. If you sell the house, it's got to go back into the program. That's my position on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berkendine. Would anyone else like to respond to what Mr. Berkendine said? You have 30 seconds.
Yes, please.
Ms. Wright.
I understand the thought process of grants because we don't want to talk about taxes and fees to be able to support and, look towards communism, socialism, and all those other things. However, one of the tools that really needs to be used more, and in my administration with my running mate will be, is creating bond instruments so that folks that want to fund projects in the state can do so without putting that weight on the taxpayers' back. With the bill that I wrote this year, 1626, about food insecurities, it does exactly that. We created a bond instrument so that we can help with transportation, we can help with refrigeration to be able to get the food from the farmers to the cities without the taxpayers having to pay a single dollar.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Mr. Myrick, do you have a different opinion on how we can make life more affordable for residents in Maryland?
Yes, clearly. The grant program is an expensive proposition that comes out of your pocket as taxpayers. One of the things we need to do, and one of the things that my running mate and I will work on, is teaching financial literacy. One of the reasons that young people can't get affordable housing is because they simply don't understand the financial system. There are methods in which they can be taught that. We were taught, when I went to high school here in Maryland, financial literacy. We were taught what a credit score was. We were taught how to protect the credit score. Because it doesn't matter if you've got the money in the bank for a down payment if you have a lousy credit score.
Thank you, Mr. Myrick. And Mr. Oakes, is it simply an issue of bonds or education?
Are you familiar with COMAR?
I am an attorney, yes.
Okay.
I am familiar with COMAR.
Okay, COMAR is approximately 17,000 pages of rules and regulations that covers just about everything in the state. But it changes because every 2 weeks they add more rules and regulations. There's stuff in there from the 80s. If COMAR is throw it out the door, start over, you may end up with a more affordable situation because the rules and regulations are just cost. That's all it is, just cost.
Thank you, Mr. Oakes. Mr. Larcomb, you've heard all of the responses. Is it an issue of COMAR, grants, education? What are your thoughts?
Well, the dilemma here is that for a first-time homeowner, you must have a household income, more than likely, because of the shortage of inventory in the state, of about $90 an hour worth of wages. Now, we can do some gentrification in Baltimore City to supply more housing available to get these people into a situation where they can afford to buy their first home. Furthermore, maybe we can talk to the banks and push these loans back to a 40-year loan versus a 30-year loan, and they might qualify.
Thank you, Mr. Larcomb. All right, before we get to our closing remarks, I do want to revisit one more thing, and probably what I believe many of us would believe is the most important aspect. There are projections that the budget deficit is going to expand into unbelievable levels. So let's talk about your strategies for reducing the budget deficit. Again, 30-second responses. We asked the question early, but I would like to hear from you about your plans to address the budget deficit, keeping in mind that cutting taxes, reducing fees, does add to the deficit. Mr. Myrick, we'll start with you.
Thank you. First off, again, the Maryland government has gotten too bloated and too expensive, quite frankly. As I pointed out earlier, Pennsylvania does all the same things that Maryland does for twice as many people for significantly less. So it comes down to spending. Controlling the spending in the state is key. Finding that waste is key. Prosecuting the fraud is key. You can't do anything if you continue to increase the size of the budget as has happened under the Moore administration. We will bring the budget down, we will bring the expenses down, we will cut the waste, and that will provide more money that will deal with the deficit.
Does everyone else on the stage agree that the only way to address the deficit is through, does everyone else agree that the only way to address the deficit is through cutting spending? Ms. Wright.
Cutting spending is one aspect, yes, but there is mismanagement. If you look specifically at mismanagement, and I'll give you one example, CMS, Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Management, their top line item is renal care, the cost of renal care. Most dialysis patients average 2 to 3 unplanned hospital stays a year. Now, with a reworking of the home dialysis program in line with President Trump's 2019 first administration executive order, would actually prevent those hospital stays and reduce the cost, not leaving anybody behind, actually improving patient outcomes and reducing taxpayer burden. That is how we look at every agency and every line.
Does anyone else have an idea on how to address the deficit beyond what's been mentioned so far?
Mr. Snow,
Yes.
what we need to do is we need to repeal the Advanced Clean Cars 2. This is a demand on all Marylanders to buy electric cars by 2035. This is an ambitious move, and what's interesting is we are paying a high price for energy in the state while we're buying dirty energy from Pennsylvania. So it doesn't make sense with what's going on. But a lot of this money is because the grid to support what the ambitious Westmore and company are doing is unaffordable, unsustainable, and is going to lead us to insolvency.
Mr. Birkendine, would you like to?
Yeah, let's find out where the money's going. Let's see where it disappeared to. Let's find that out. Let's have the audit. Let's get to the bottom of this, and let's do what we have to do to make the changes. We need to bring back manufacturing. We need to have better wages so that we can have income coming into the state. We don't have any income coming in. So yes, the taxes are going up. Yes, these burdens are on all of us because because Moore has chased everybody out of here. Real business people are leaving. They're going other places, setting up businesses. We need to take care of that, and it's got to be a state of an emergency to have this. Stop the spending, put a freeze on spending till we figure out where it's at, and then make the changes. And if it's fraud and abuse, then we have to prosecute these people and do whatever we have to do.
Mr. Oaks, you have the last word. Just a moment. Okay, go ahead. Your plan to address the deficit.
Governor Moore has gotten us into such a hole. How do you even come up with a plan other than you've got to cut spending? Get rid of the blueprint. Just get rid of it. That's $30 billion right there. Start backwards from that. Look at 34 agencies and say, what are you guys going to do to reduce your agency cost? Because we can't bear it any longer.
Thank you very much.
Tori Snow, thank you. We are now moving on to our closing statements. Each candidate has 2 minutes to make their final case of the evening to the Maryland Republican primary voters. We will proceed in reverse order from how we started the evening, from tonight's opening statements. We begin with Mr. Oaks.
Well, this has been great fun. Maryland, as it is today, has made some horrible decisions, from letting all the IA plants come into the state, the data centers. They use far more electricity. I think one data center is projected to use enough electricity equal to 100,000 residential properties. The water usage from data centers is 125 million gallons a day. Where's that water coming from? When there's no water and the bucket's dry, then you're going to start asking questions. The blueprint for Maryland is costing property tax because the majority of that is funded by property tax. My personal property tax on my house went up 30% this year. when I took it to court to argue, all I got from the judge was a word salad, and we're gonna go with what the state says. To me, that sounds like there's some corruption where possibly Moore said in the beginning, I'm not gonna raise your property tax. So what did he do? Calls the assessors and say, you raise everybody's assessment 20 to 30% across the board. Then that frees me up from liability of, I'm not gonna raise your property tax. So we have to adjust the property tax by eliminating the blueprint, which is funded by property tax, and we have to make the data centers pay for their electrical use by installing small modular nuclear power plants for the data center, not take power from the grid.
Here we go. Okay, so as a businessman in Maryland, I've been doing business in Maryland for over 40 years. It's been a real struggle. There's been times where I worked for the state of Maryland, and there was times I didn't even get paid by the state of Maryland. And it was a struggle to get some of this money years ago. We're talking back in the early 90s. Things have gotten better that way for contractors in the state of Maryland. But we have to bring back business in the state of Maryland. We've got to work hard on that. We got to work on that. We got to stop the spending. We got to find out where the money's going to, and as governor, I'm going to find that out. I'm going to work harder than anybody up here on this stage. I'm a contractor. When I had to get things done, I got it done. So when I go out here and I say I'm going to do something, you can take my word for it because I'm working for you. Tonight, I felt like this was a day that people were questioning what I'm doing because I'm actually applying for a job here. I look at it like I work for you. I work for everybody in this audience, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to have an open door policy. You can call me anytime, and I'm going to work for the people here. So please give me an opportunity, and I'll get this done for you, and I'll work hard. Thank you.
Thank you. I want everyone here in the room and in the state to think about this. The gates of freedom are narrow. The gates of freedom are narrow. And when you try to redistrict and cut into fair elections, you are narrowing the gates to freedom, the path through there. When you keep increasing taxes on all the residents in the state of Maryland, they have to work more, they have to dig deeper, and the gates of freedom become more narrow. Now, I want to quickly go back to earlier when Ms. Morgan said, well, we're talking a lot about Westmore. I'm going to tell you right now, the only candidate right here, right now, that has a shot at Westmore is me. The percentages already speak. There are a couple of candidates here tonight, or not here tonight, for a reason. Because the last time, they were annihilated by Westmore in a straight-on head-to-head election. Furthermore, we have another one who's a flip-flopper because he had analytics done with regard to polling if he faced off with Westmore in a Democrat primary. He calls somebody like this a party raider. Democrat Party may have very well sent him in here to mess up the election. Furthermore, when we just look at performances in previous elections with low scores with regard to how many votes you got, you know, for the people who have already been into the election process, it already calls into question if they're going to be able to take on Westmore. And I'm telling you right now, they can't. Westmore knows who I am. Donald John Trump knows who I am. And I am telling you that I can fairly represent the representative party and the state of Maryland as your governor.
Shannon Wright.
Well, we've all heard some very interesting things here tonight. And I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. It is not just about owning businesses, running businesses, and creating jobs. It's about understanding systems, which ones are broken, and how to fix them. I've not heard a lot about that, but I can tell you this. You talk about, and you've heard about, bringing business back and giving tax breaks and abatements and all those other really cute things. So here's what you do. Put all that to the side. It's cute. What you need to do to really be able to turn things around in the state of Maryland is make Maryland a family-friendly state. Now, you do that by, as I said earlier, in terms of education, let the light bulb come on for a second. Let the money follow the student. Now, how many parents in this room would love to be able to send their child to a private school without having to pay that tuition bill? You want to attract businesses, you want to attract jobs, make the money follow the student. Because when the money follows the student, the parents will follow the good opportunity of education for their children. Don't talk about giving away the house now and tax abatements and all that. Fix the education. Entice the families. Make the legislation family-friendly. That's how you fix Maryland, without having to worry about how many federal jobs and if we're going to have to grow the state. Ooh, Jesus wept. Without having to worry if we're going to have to grow the state amount of employees to be able to try and artificially inflate the numbers in our state. Let's get back to basics. We were one of the first. Let's make it the strongest. Families first, jobs, and safety. If we do those things in that order. Now, as far as Westmore, unlike my opponents, I've actually dealt with him before on a panel. And anybody that thinks anybody sitting up here other than myself or my running mate can take on Westmore, that knows how to snap back, clap back, speak the King's English and the urban English, y'all better sit down and buckle up for another 4 years of Westmore.
And John Myrick.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here this evening and for sharing your evening with us to learn what you can about the candidates who are seeking the highest office in the state. The bottom line here is Maryland deserves better. This governor has dug us a deep hole, and if he's allowed to continue for another 4 years, he will bury us. The only team up here who can actually beat Westmore is me and my running mate, Dr. Brenda Cham. I chose the best possible lieutenant governor candidate in the country, an educator who will help us rebuild the Maryland school system, a former legislator, the first African-American woman to ever serve in the General Assembly as a Republican in history. She's a trailblazer and respected on both sides of the aisle. She brings legislative experience. I bring decades of governmental work and experience in dealing with legislatures at the federal and state level to the table. We have very real solutions to Maryland's very real problems. And Maryland needs a governor who is, first off, a Marylander, and secondly, who cares about Maryland. I always say, politicians talk about problems, public servants solve them. Dr. Cham and I are public servants. We have been our entire lives. And we will continue to do that for you, because the people in Annapolis forgot a very long time ago that they work for you and me. We will remind them of that in November. And we will continue to remind them of that as your next governor and lieutenant governor. We can solve these problems. It takes a few things. First, a governor who gives a damn enough to do it. And secondly, a governor who's not seeking a higher office like this governor and the last two before him. You deserve better, and we will provide that to you. Thank you for your time.
With that concludes the 2026, the first Republican primary debate for governor. On behalf of COGS and North County Republican Club, I want to express our sincere gratitude to all of our candidates tonight for their participation in this primary debate. To our three moderators, Kim Klasick, Euripsy Morgan, and Tori Snow, thank you for your questions, your time, and your professionalism. To our timekeeper, great job. Our security team, our volunteers, and I want to thank all of you for taking time away from your families to be here tonight. The Maryland Republican primary will be Tuesday, June 23rd. For voter registration information, your polling place, and more, you can visit elections.maryland.gov. The next primary debate. It will be April 23rd at 7 o'clock at Cub Hill Church in Parkville. Following the debate tonight, our candidates will make themselves available for brief meet and greets. There is press availability in the back for the members of the media who are here. And also, if you have any questions, you can see the event staff. So on behalf of COGS, North County Republican Club, thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you to our candidates. Thank you again to our moderators. Have a great evening and good night.